Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is the GameSpot spoiler cast for Star Wars The Force Awakens. I'm joined by Rob Handlery, Peter Brown, and Joshua Shaw. How are you guys?
Great.
Good. Finally saw it.
What we're going to do right now is spoil the fuck out of this movie. So if you do not want to watch this video, if you don't want to listen to what we have to say, turn this shit off.
Come back.
That's your warning. Real quick, I just want to kind of get started here. We all saw the movie last night at various theaters across San Francisco. Really quickly, I just want to go one by one. What did you think? Rob, go.
I walked out of the movie extremely satisfied. I've seen it twice now. I really enjoy this movie. It's great.
Yeah, Peter.
Yeah, I loved it a lot, and I had a few minor quibbles, but it didn't really detract from the overall experience, which was very positive. And having grown up with like the special editions in theaters, and then the new the new prequels and stuff, this finally felt like the Star Wars I could own. So very much loved it.
I was waiting for this movie, really hyped for it. I wanted like an 11. I expected a 9, and I got an 8, in my opinion. There were too many issues. The movie seemed a little too sloppy for how much time and care should have been put into it.
Yeah, I'm a little bit on Josh's side. What we wanted to do in this spoiler cast is basically have like a variety of opinions. We had some people that were true huge fans of the movie. I'm a little bit lower than Josh. I'm like a 7.5. I think, in terms of what I thought of The Force Awakens. However, I did think it was actually a really good movie. I enjoyed it. There were parts I loved. There were definitely some gripes I had. We'll get into that stuff as we kind of go down like this list of like things. But first of all, I guess kind of starting off the bat, you want to just talk about the main characters?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
New characters. We'll get into the cameos and such like that. But new characters. Finn. How do you guys feel about Finn as a character in this movie? I personally felt he was very different from anything we've seen. He was a character that wasn't strong in the sense that he had some plot points, right? He basically rescued Rey. He helped blow up the Starkiller base, but I felt he was a very new type of character in that he wasn't force sensitive. He wasn't an outstanding pilot. He was a very almost like broken character in my opinion. I thought that was like new and fresh, and it was something to kind of admire. Like he was much more of a like everyday Joe.
So when Finn came up at first, I was a little taken back by his transition. I grew more comfortable with his character as I started to see shades of a young Luke in him. I think they're different archetypes, but if you look at Luke in A New Hope, right? He's not really special. He doesn't really do anything particularly well, and that's Finn. Finn is more confident than young Luke and more willing to take risks. So I enjoyed his character overall, but the transition from someone who grew up in this society that was so dark and evil, and how easy he was able to just snap out of that was a little surprising to me.
Well, here's the thing is, remember when he was going to go and work and go to the Outer Rim? And then they blew up a planet, and that whole kind of running away from the fight thing was just over and never talked about it again. From there on out, he was so gung-ho, but what necessarily changed? He knew they had that weapon. He'd worked at it before. And then they use it once, and now he's like, okay, I'm full resistance pilot. I'm going to go on a 3-man mission to save my friend, who he was just hours earlier ready to walk away from forever.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there are some hopefully story points that they address in future, obviously in the episode 8 and 9 of this franchise. I think that Finn, I agree with you a lot of what you guys had to say. As somebody that's supposed to be kind of indoctrinated into this whole elite cult of stormtroopers, we don't know much about the stormtroopers in this new universe. It sounds like they are taken as young children.
They've changed over the years, right?
They're not. I guess they're not clones. Yeah, they're
right.
not clones anymore. But it's you have this guy. I understand it's his first battle, his
rodeo.
first actual combat scenario where he's out there massacring people on this planet. At the same time though, the transformation where he just kind of all of a sudden, well, I guess we don't know anything about him beforehand, but still, regardless, his change, his switch to realize, oh fuck, I need to get out of here and get the hell away from the First Order, seemed really abrupt. And I was talking to Justin Haywald last night when we saw it, that at no point in this entire movie did I ever believe or feel that Finn was a stormtrooper. To me, there's either something in his backstory that we're not yet getting, or it just isn't there. I just don't believe it.
It wasn't present because he he literally changes within the first like 5 minutes of the movie. So you're right, you don't see him as a stormtrooper. You see him as a character that is not.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's very hidden, and they touch on that. Again, I think the main gripe that people either love or hate about this movie is that the pacing was so freaking fast
Yep.
that
It's very J.J. Abrams.
you had to like fill in the gaps as yourself. And I mean, not to like say like I'm better than you guys, but I saw it twice, and you see pickups, like you see these moments that are hidden. You see conversations that are simply just cut away from in order for you to help fill in the gap, because this movie requires you to fill in a lot of what is hidden, and then again what is going to be seen in the sequel. So that's, I think, a big thing, because you look at something like A New Hope, right? Like a lot of it was just drawn out in a good way. You saw a lot of development. You saw a lot of like, Han, Leia, Luke, all these people come together who have not known each other at all. Here you just got it much quicker, and either you liked it or you hated it. And I was fine with it.
Yeah, I mean, like if you look at the prequels, they were so lackadaisical in their pacing,
Right.
like to a detriment. And I think people, at least I did, like really want something that was engaging immediately. And I think for a series that has been so anticipated, I'm apologizing for the things in the film that are objectively done poorly, but I think it actually works in its favor as someone who likes the series and who wants to see it continue now, not wait for the next film to start picking up the pace.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing I can take away from the characters in this film, I think J.J. Abrams and Kasdan did a great job of just kind of resurrecting a franchise that, let's be honest, has remained dormant of any valid, good plot point for nearly 40 years. The prequels were very underwhelming to a lot of people. I know a lot of young people still like those movies, but at the same time, like, for really true diehard fans of the series that really grew up with the original trilogy, I think that they did a pretty good job of kind of establishing these characters. I just felt they could have done more with them, especially in Finn's case, which I just kind of want to know more about. But hopefully we get that, hopefully we get that in episode 8, maybe, who knows?
Sure.
Virtually all the new characters I liked, with like a couple exceptions, but like all the main heroes, the young guys, like Finn, Rey, Kylo Ren, like I like them all. Again, I wanted more, and I understand like they aren't going to sit back and explain everyone's backstory, but it was the pacing that I really had the issue with more than like the characters themselves.
Sure.
And also, man, their training program has some serious flaws. If after his first battle he snaps and then goes and has a freak out.
You're talking about Kylo.
No, I'm talking
Finn.
about Finn. Like, where was
okay.
his counselor, right? Like, he's been brainwashed since a child, snaps at his first battle, and then, like, they should have seen that coming. That's their whole operation, is training stormtroopers, and they really blew it on that guy.
And I mean, you're right. I mean, it's a little weak, but they gave enough for me. Like, I feel like every time, like, there was a moment where they broke, who was this soldier, who defected, whatever. Yeah. And they do a really quick moment where they're like, he's this guy. He's one of my best.
Out. They all like knew who he was.
Yeah, I mean, but I thought it was fascinating, like, because there was something there that you didn't know, but they hit it, and that's the thing, is like you. I mean, I'm conflicted in that, because I agree with you in that, like, you shouldn't have to say, oh, they'll cover this later in another movie. That's, you want to take a movie on its own merits, really. But I think they might. I think
go back on.
He's got a lot. I mean, if he's going to be a main character for the next movie, they got to touch on that.
Yeah, we hope so. I mean, I'm hoping. Obviously, John Boyega is a great actor. I thought he did his role well. I mean, like, there were some definitely scenes of when he's fighting that stormtrooper, when the Resistance is trying to fight off the First Order. Like, that stormtrooper has like that crazy gravity hammer, and like you see John Boyega like fighting him. That was an awesome scene. It's so cool to see that. At the same time, though, it's just like I hope we get more of a background, like, what is the 411 on Finn? Like, why did he snap like that? I hope maybe they explain it a little bit, maybe not. Who knows? Sure. But I mean, I don't want to go too much on Finn here, because
I do. I got one more thing to say.
One more thing. Go for it.
Fine.
Okay, for all the gripes we have about that aspect of his story, and for all the minor times they brought it up later in the film, I think what really matters about the character is everything that exists outside of his past. I mean, he is this plucky young guy who was finding his footing in this new thing. Is it really important that, because there's a potential for that interesting aspect, that we need that to be fleshed out? I think everything we think about stormtroopers, right, and the conflict between these two sides makes us want more of that. But I think that character can live on just based on who he is now.
So tell me this. This is an interesting theory I had. I trying to go into this movie with forgetting the fact that I saw the prequels was really hard for me. Like, I didn't even watch the prequels before I saw The Force Awakens because I didn't want that bad taste in my mouth, especially that lore that George Lucas set up. So, like, I think in the first trilogy, you know, I don't think, at least I don't remember ever thinking, oh, all these stormtroopers are clones. You know, I don't ever think I actually thought that once. You know, I know they referenced the Clone Wars a little bit, you know, in A New Hope, but then you learn later on that they're all clones. And then in the Force Awakens, they are kidnapped from childhood, and they're like indoctrinated into like this society of like, you know, whatever. They're now like fighting killing machines, what do you ever want to call it. So you're right. I think that's a good point. Like, do we need to know this whole backstory? I think if I didn't have the prequels fresh in my mind, I probably wouldn't care as much.
So I think just to clarify, there are like, I think with the 3 trilogies,
Yes.
there are actually 3 ways that they make stormtroopers. First
Yeah.
one was clones. Second one was, I think, just recruitment. They just
I think it was just a normal.
It was a normal process. Now you got the First Order, which arose out of the Galactic Empire, and it seems to be, as they said, like I handpick. It's more dark and it's like sinister. Yep. We pick these people, we steal them, and then we brainwash them. So they touched on that. I think that's all you need out of stormtroopers and out of Finn. So I agree with you on that. And then the
There's
rest
not
is
going to be much in his backstory, like maybe some weird childhood things.
fine. Yeah,
They're not
At
going to go into his
school.
time like being trained.
Yeah,
like,
it's all training, so there's nothing there really.
No,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
get that. I mean, again, I don't know much about the books and
No, yeah,
the
sure.
other canon of
fine.
the Star Wars universe, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, I mean, I think Peter makes a good point. Do we need to know that? Probably not.
yeah. Do we want to talk about do we want to talk about other characters such as
Ray. Let's
Ray
talk about
was
Ray.
one of the strongest character in the whole movie.
Yeah, I mean, this is the character that I just connected with on so many levels. I thought, was it as a Deadly Ray or what?
Daisy Ridley.
Daisy Ridley, yeah, I thought she just did a fantastic job. Ray was by far just the most fascinating character in the entire movie. They did such a good job of developing, you know, her sense of concern, her sense of wonder. Like, it's like the scavenger aspect of her life. You know how she like. I love all those intro. I love the setup of her just kind of like scavenging all these like old Star Destroyers, looking for stuff just to get food. You know, it's just really, really, really cool to not only see like a strong female character like this, but also just see the way they developed her, and like you can sense that, like, you know, you can sense the frustration, the pain, the turmoil, any conflict she's going through. You can just feel it on her face. You can just feel that emotion. It does resonate well with the audience, and I always found myself just super worried and concerned and connected with her. So
Yeah, I wouldn't have any other points. I mean, I think we all kind of, for the most part, agreed that I thought she was like the perfect embodiment of like Luke. You know, a lot of this movie is so New Hope, and we can talk about that a little bit later. But she was so Luke Skywalker, and
yeah,
I loved how they brought that was like the one true emotion from the original trilogy that like felt like the like most utilized. I don't know.
I guess I don't agree that she resonated or she felt like Luke Skywalker. Like, apart from growing up more or less like on a desert
an
planet.
orphan on a desert planet.
Yeah, like that made sense. But
Yeah.
Luke again was not very smart, not very talented when he first started out, and he doubted himself like very far into the original trilogy. Rey doesn't really have many of those doubts. The only time we see it is when she gets the lightsaber and doesn't really want to confront her past, so she tries to give it up. That's the only time. But that is not like a doubt in her abilities. That's a fear more than anything. Luke didn't have much fear. If anything, he had to be reined in from being too confident at times.
Well, I mean, I think you have to also remember that Luke had like catalysts, you know, like his aunt and uncle were murdered and killed. So like it kind of gave him that push of like, okay, you know, now I'm just going to go join Obi-Wan and become a Jedi, you know, like my dad, you know? So he had that push, and I think Daisy had that as well. Rey had that as well, but obviously towards the end of the movie, you know, where she had that push, you know, where she's like, okay, I know what I need to do now at this point and go find Luke. And I think that's what happened.
Well, yeah, and then we can also look at the second half of her story, which basically sets her up to be Han Solo moving forward until the end of the film, which we will get to at one point.
Yeah, I mean,
But it's her and Chewie from here on, you know?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's an interesting concept because I agree. Like, it's you kind of. I already kind of knew what was going to happen. I think when I saw this movie, I had a sense that she would become the Jedi-like figure, and you know, of course, there's like the ending when she's with Chewie now, and they're in the Millennium Falcon, they're just taking off. That is kind of an interesting kind of break from what you might expect. Like you think, oh, maybe that will be Finn's character with Chewie. Now that spoiler, poor Han Solo died. But I mean, the thing is like I believed everything that she was going through. Like even the part where she was like, no, I don't want to confront this. I don't want any part of this. When she is she's talking to Maz, right? In that temple that was later destroyed, and she stumbles across Luke's lightsaber. So I liked it. It was kind of very reminiscent of when Luke was in the Dagobah system training with Yoda, and he goes into that tree, and he kind of is fighting his own demons, right?
Yeah, I'd say not. I think I mentioned New Hope. I would say looking back, what I meant, more or less is it was kind of like Empire and A New Hope condensed, right? As far as like the training for her happened quick, and it needed to happen quick because I think when it came down to it, this movie needed to have some good versus evil, clear and simple. Yeah. And you had to get to that quick, and you couldn't really do these training moments like you had on the second movie, Empire Strikes Back. So you had to rush that. More or less. It's
interesting to think about, we're here disagreeing about which character a new character represents from the past films. But I think if we look at any of the new characters, you can find aspects of multiple characters within within them, which is a really good way to not be so heavy-handed and being like, this is the new Luke, this is the new Han. It's you recognize things that you remember and appreciate about the old cast, sort of disseminated among the new group. Yeah. Which is done really well.
Yeah, I thought they did a good job with that. What do you guys think about Kylo?
I think he was one of my favorites.
I think his hair was too long. When he took off that helmet, it actually really threw me off. How
Luke,
ridiculous.
We got New Hope playing over here, and Luke takes off his stormtrooper. I'm Luke Skywalker. His hair is bobbing around. But anyways, we can.
Kylo was really cool, but I mean, it was almost funny because he's this really tough, really confident, the most powerful Force user we've ever seen in a movie. So casually
stops
strong.
Bullets.
Stops laser bullets.
Blaster fire, yeah.
And he can use the Force without the hand gestures and everything. He is so ridiculously strong, and then he takes off his helmet, and he's a dork. He's a Vader fanboy, right?
I love
totally.
That.
That's why he wears the helmet at all.
Yeah.
Exactly.
He's dressing up as Darth Vader.
I was telling Josh, he was like Andy Samberg playing, Kylo Ren, or a Darth Vader wannabe.
It's close, but Adam Driver is also he is definitely not like that. He is his voice is very strong. He can be really crazy. Mm-hmm. Yep. But it's funny, those first impressions with the long silly hair and stuff, it does throw you off. But I thought his character was great, and he did a really good job.
He was so convincing as a villain, and then when he takes off his helmet, you just think, oh, he's just like a kid, right? And who got taken and manipulated by Snoke. That's when you start seeing him break, because then right after Rey basically denies his Force mind trick, and you just see how weak he is, and then of course just how it transpires later on with him talking to Han Solo before he does the deed. He's just a really mixed up dude, I love that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I had to digest it last night a little bit and let it marinate in my head, because when I left the movie, I thought, man, he's kind of like a whiny bitch. You know, he just is kind of he just complains and he's not fully trained. But then I kind of started thinking, I'm like, that's actually what I loved about that final duel between him and Rey, was that the lightsaber battles, you can tell that neither of these two are fully trained in the Force at all, whether it's Sith or Jedi. They're kind of coming into their own. Obviously, Kylo Ren's a little bit ahead of Rey, but at the most part, you're okay, yeah, you can tell they're not perfect, they're not fully trained. Even Snoke later is get Kylo back here, we have to complete his training, So I mean that part was kind of cool. I kind of started to see the more human element of him. The scene where he kills his father is I remember just sitting there going okay, Han has to die here,
But and Han has to know it too.
Yeah, and Han has to know it too. But he comes up and he's like, Father, I need you to help me, and he helped him. He was like, I have to kill you to become fully evil, 100%.
That goes up there with one of the most sad moments of all Star Wars for me.
Name?
Yeah, saying his name, Ben. How he says Ben shook me up. It was oh my God, this is his son. This is Ben Kenobi. There's just, you get a hit of all of this history that has not ever been explained. You don't know exactly how he came to be taken by Snoke. But just hearing that, you're just like, oh my God,
It's
he's
heartbreaking.
his son.
He
It's
named him
heartbreaking.
after a Jedi.
Right.
He
It's so
wanted him to
good.
be a great
Obi-Wan,
Jedi.
yeah.
And then he just let his parents down so much, and you could feel it in Han's voice.
And the one thing that, I mean, now that we're on the topic of that real quick, like that one gripe after that was, I just felt the way they handled Han's death was just so like underwhelming. It was like he dies, and then it's just like you said, Abrams is fast, right? He doesn't skip a beat, you know, it just moves. And I'm like, can we just process the fact that you just killed off
It reminded me of Obi-Wan's death, where Luke
One of the most beloved
screams and then they all start shooting each
disappears.
other.
Yeah, but like at that point, like you've been introduced to Obi-Wan for like maybe like 50 minutes, you know?
Right, yeah.
Like this is Han
This is Han
Solo.
Solo.
This is Han fucking Solo, and like you stab him through the chest and he falls, and it's just like you see Leia like kind of like grasp herself and like freak out, and that's it. And
Well,
it's just kind of like,
That's all I needed.
Like, so at that point in the film, I was wondering, like, is Chewbacca, again, just a prop? Like, is
Yeah.
he ever going to do anything meaningful? And that was the impetus for him to actually, like, go into action and make a difference, right? Like,
Yeah.
he was able to hurt Kylo Ren. But,
yeah, he shot him. It was great.
Yeah.
Probably saved
But
Finn
going-
and Rey's life by doing that.
right. But going back, though, to that character, Kylo, there's that scene where he's, like, wrestling with, like, oh, the light side is, like, coming back. They didn't justify why he felt that way. They just cut to a shot of him saying like, "Oh, I'm starting to feel good," but like, why? Like, that's one aspect of his character I don't think was developed enough, and could have been developed with even just a small little line of something that pushed him to question his dark side,
As opposed to doing it right then and there.
as opposed to just saying it. Yeah, just like, "Oh, yeah,
I feel the pull of the light. Or
yeah." Like
something.
from what? I don't know. Like there's. If you are so evil and you are so driven to meet Darth Vader, what could possibly penetrate that
Speculation.
motivation?
Maybe he felt the awakening of Rey and that kind of light force. Because they do talk about feeling that awakening.
Have you felt it? And he says,
Yeah.
yes, I have.
That could have been something related.
Yeah, I mean,
to
like
it.
Sure.
it's weird with Kylo because again, the more I kind of sit on him, the more I like his character. I just had a big issue with him. Like he seemed, like Josh said, he seemed so menacing, so evil when he had his helmet on, and then when he took it off, I'm just kind of like, huh, it's just a boy.
Hell
you know?
yeah. And that's
I thought that was
that's,
good.
That's
No, I
what
mean,
was
yeah, I
needed.
agree.
Yeah.
I'm saying I thought that was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Even though it doesn't make him as cool,
Yeah.
it makes him a
More
better
Pathetic.
character, yeah.
It makes him pathetic, and we need to see a
Definitely.
character who acts that way
he's-
actually, look pathetic.
Yeah, he's a vulnerable villain, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I think I finally got that. Initially, it bothered me because I'm going like, man, like you just seem so awesome when you had your helmet on, and now I'm just kind of like, eh. But now that I think about it, I'm like, okay, I get it. Like he's not fully trained. He's still young and naive. You know, he has to kill his dad now to prove to Snoke that he's awesome. You know,
Holy shit, though. When he's fighting and he got shot and he like
Oh, he starts punching himself.
That
punches
was
himself
so
in order to
fucking
like
sick.
feed off the pain
Such a
and
good
become
detail.
stronger.
So great.
Yeah.
I love how he was doing that, and I was thinking like, oh, he's just kind of a badass. And then I remember, doing like comments and reading all the stuff. And then someone mentioned he's trying to get the pain in him.
see, I didn't know that.
That
until you
is
mentioned
so
that to me,
cool.
yeah. At first, I'm like, what is he? What is this whole machismo thing? Beating my
Yeah.
chest? And then like you told me, I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I get that.
He's like
That's cool.
feeding off that dark hatred, anger.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it shows he doesn't have control over it. That he has to sort of like turn the dial by hitting himself.
Right. Feel something familiar. Or
Right.
something
Rather
like
than
that,
just like pull it out
It's
from.
like a little
existing
emo kid
place.
that cuts himself. You know, like
Sure.
he has to feel that pain. You know,
Exactly.
you know, it's great. It's
Cool.
awesome.
He was my favorite character. Like when you compare it to Darth
Oh.
Maul or something, even like Darth Vader, like I don't know why. Maybe it's because he's too in pop culture before I originally saw Star Wars, but he was never really that menacing to me. But man, Kylo Ren is something else.
Darth Vader was
but-
only menacing in the context of anyone who worked under him.
Well, I mean, the thing with Darth
Those
Vader,
stormtroopers turning away.
I think
Actually, I
with-
want to touch on that. Keep going.
I think with Darth Vader, I think in comparison, because obviously, like that is what Kylo Ren wants to be. He wants to take over his grandfather's legacy at this point, right? The interesting thing to me about Vader was like in A New Hope and Empire, I think they set Vader up so brilliantly evil, like menacing. At least when I saw these movies when I was a kid, you know, because like at what point, you know, like imagine Empire, you know, the very end when he reveals to Luke he's his dad, right? He's just like he fucks Luke up so hard, fucking cuts off his hand, and then right when he's about like on the brink of just giving up, he just looks at Luke and says, "Oh, by the way,
I fucked your
I
mom.
fucked your mom." You know? Yeah, and then like Luke's just like, "Oh fuck," you know, and as an audience and as like a viewer, you're like, "What the fuck just happened?" You know, And like, you know, I think it simmers down a little bit in Return of the Jedi, but it was great to see Kylo Ren so viciously evil in the beginning, and I love like when he freaks the fuck out and just starts slashing shit. Like you can tell he's like just not controlled.
So to segue nicely from that is I loved how he was doing that. Right, he did that twice. He just like went like fucking like a child in a room throwing toys around. He's just like whipping his shit around, cutting up computers. And then right after they have that joke the second time where the stormtroopers come around the corner and they see what's going on and they just turn around and walk away. That is a funny ass bit. However, I think around there or like the other time, I'm talking about, basically I'm getting into humor, but the other time was when Finn is saying, or sorry, Han Solo is basically trying to tell Finn by nodding up, and Finn's like, what the hell are you talking about? Clearly he's looking behind him and saying, turn around. The moments of humor, for the most part, were delivered and executed really well. I just walked out of the theater. The main thing I remember leaving was like, man, I love humor, but that was just too much of it. Like the second time when Kylo was just freaking out, I wanted to soak on that. I wanted to feel his frustration, not immediately have a joke thrown in, like, oh yeah. Right. So many times I want to be like, no, I want to soak on this. The whole middle part where like they're moving around on Starkiller. There had so many jokes tied in, right? Like the trash compactor, all these things. I wanted to feel more gravity, more fear of this.
Let's dwell on that for a little bit.
And it went up and down, and
it
was too much. I thought the first quarter and the last quarter were like really great. Anyways.
So the trash compactor thing hits home for me because there is that scene, and you want to talk about wasted character like Phasma with Gwendolyn Christie, right? Like that was just, I mean, what the fuck was that about? Like that, you barely saw her in this whole fucking movie, and I'm not even sure why she was even there, but. There's that scene in the fucking, what's it called? The Star Killer? I don't know.
Star Killer base, yeah.
Yeah, whatever. They're in that base, and Finn's like, "Oh, I have an idea," And I love the exchange between him and Han when they're like, when they invaded, and then he's like, "What's your plan?" He's like, "Oh, I don't have a plan. I'm just here for the girl," And he's like, "What?" And
what did you do here?
Yeah, exactly.
Sanitation.
And then he goes and they kidnap Phasma. And then it's just like, she's supposed to be like this badass, right?
Yeah.
Nope,
powerless.
Nope, exactly.
So
nothing.
powerless,
And then like Finn's like, you will, like puts a gun to her head and says, you will put down these shields so my friends can come and fuck you up. And she just does it, right? Like it's like, what the fuck? Like there's no way someone with that much power and that up in the hierarchy would just give up like that.
Yeah.
She just completely like was responsible for the destruction of that base. Like
granted, her idea was that people are going to come immediately after I do this, and they're gonna come kill you. But
she should have died.
Sure, like she should have been crucified after this.
Again, it's the training. Their brainwashing doesn't seem to be sticking on characters.
I want to talk about Poe, if you guys
let's go.
are ready, because I thought that was another very underwhelming character. I don't think he was utilized in any way that added value to the film. Like he was there, he was an effective pilot. Sure, he did his thing. But why couldn't there have just been a band of good pilots that just do their thing and we don't have to get into their story? Like maybe he's going to be more relevant moving forward. But, we see him for like 10 minutes at the start, then he's gone, then he makes his return. There's nothing complicated about his character. And other than the fact that like he had BB-8 and he passed it on. But
he's like the embodiment of the Resistance in X-Wings.
He's like pure awesome.
Pure awesome. I thought I was satisfied with him. I thought he was funny in the beginning when he got captured. He's a strong dude. He's kind of what I feel like, as far as like tying into like original trailer, like original trilogy is like
Lando.
He's like Wedge Antilles, but just like a stronger presence. Like I like that. I think he was fine to me. I thought he did a pretty great job.
At first,
that
I
cocky
liked him.
pilot like Han too.
Yeah, like when he appeared, I actually was stoked because I thought like he's not just like cocky and confident. Like there was something else about his character. He's a bit smarmy, but in a way that's like good for characterization. And so to not get a lot of that was what I guess disappointed me because they set him up to be a pivotal player.
I'd like a spin-off movie about him more than one about young Han Solo.
Oh, totally.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I want to see more of him. I just felt like he wasn't.
So there's
like
those
Phasma
comments about
utilized.
his parents that are coming out now, but still, it's like that doesn't count as a backstory on a character to talk about his parents.
Again, I think one of the big gripes I had about this film was just the lack of character development, and I agree with Peter. I think that there was a little bit of a missed opportunity on Poe. I think that we got a lot of great scenes with him in the beginning, and then it kind of just disappeared. Like he vanished from the film for a good hour. Like he was gone, and then he comes back at the end, and it's great because it's awesome to see these great X-wing TIE fighter battles. But I do think they did not expand much on his character.
And it was just like, oh, I got thrown from the ship and you weren't there.
Yeah. I mean, I at this point, like we're nitpicking, but I think it is a rational gripe to have. I think you can look at that and be like, hey, I would have loved to know more about this. But that's kind of how I felt throughout the whole movie. There were a lot of things I wanted to know more about, and maybe we'll get that in upcoming sequels. But it is interesting to point out. I mean, in terms of, I think I want to kind of get into the story points real quick here because I want to talk about that with you guys. How did everyone feel about the story in general?
The whole Star Killer base thing I thought was just so Death Star, and they barely even tried.
Like when it comes to the film doing so many things that mirror A New Hope, this was like
so at least not blow it up at the end. It didn't have to just be
blow up. Hey, it turned into a sun though. That's cool.
It was cool and everything, but it was if they didn't have 2 Death Stars in 2 other Star Wars movies, it wouldn't have been such a big deal. But they've done this now, and it's clearly a reference to that, and they didn't change anything. It only has the ability to blow up multiple planets at once.
Yeah.
So the one thing, here's my thought on this. My theory on this is that if the intention was for J.J. Abrams and Disney to resurrect this franchise and introduce it to a whole new generation of fans, I think they way exceeded their I think they succeeded there. I think that I think this was A New Hope. Let's be honest. This was basically A New Hope re-envisioned. And I mean, there are some changes, yes, but I do think that if the job here was to get a bunch of new fans on board the Star Wars franchise, I think they successfully did that. At the same time, yes, it's okay, how many times do we have to revisit the same strategy of okay, here's a ship, here's the diagram, here's the weak point. We have to go in there.
They made a joke of have Han go turn off the shields so the X-wings can come in and finish it. It was the exact plot of Return of the Jedi.
This movie, just in general, it was played so safe because of the damage the prequels had. They really came in thinking all right, let's just put things in their face that they will be familiar with, and they will be yes. There was a lot of, that's what I felt satisfied for. It was I was damn, that is what I remember, and that's what I love.
Yeah.
And that's the line that was basically had, right? It was either we do something really familiar, really safe, or we do something fucking new. And I would say that they definitely...
Oh, they played it safe.
They played it so safe, and they probably played it a little too safe.
But that's because
that's how I feel.
And I think it's because the prequels, George Lucas went off the rails. I mean, granted, you can criticize him for all you want. The guy did try new shit, and I think that's where people kind of, has some left a sour taste in their mouth. But it does seem odd though. You look at the story, you're okay, the Republic seems to have rebuilt itself right after Return of the Jedi, but we never actually see the actual Republic leaders, reacting to this terrorist splinter group of the First Order, and we don't really understand why the major resistance to the First Order is called the Resistance in the first place. Now, granted,
why are they underground?
Yeah, maybe we'll probably learn that, I'm sure, in the next film. But at the most part, it is kind of that was the part that was kind of confusing to me a little bit. But again, maybe we don't have to have everything explained to us beat by beat. At the same time, everyone here says, there are just a lot of callbacks to A New Hope. And, you look at this, you're okay. And, I don't know about you guys, but, in my theater, anytime somebody saw something from, it was kind of fun, but then it got a little annoying after a while.
Of course it did,
we're in the Millennium Falcon, and, I think you and I were talking about this, where, if it's either Finn or Rey, pulls up the little, the training ball that Luke used to, to train with a lightsaber, and everyone's, freaking out, clapping, and I'm okay, I get it, this is fun. So, but it happened throughout the whole film, right? Anytime you saw R2, you saw C-3PO, you saw that stuff, everybody was freaking the fuck out. So that's cool. I get that callback. I get they want to they want to inject that nostalgia into the existing fan base, and that's smart. I get it. I just wish the narrative was a little stronger.
Yeah. I think we've talked a little bit about it was there's so much they needed to do, and I think it was wasted a little once or twice. For instance, the what are those dudes called on the
Rathtars.
Rathtars?
The
Thank you.
Rathtars.
That scene didn't need to be as long or need to be there at all.
They
There
made
could
a
have been
lot of cuts to this movie, and I can't believe that
Made the
it
cut?
in.
made the cut because that scene was so weak and it could have been utilized.
So
That time could have been
CGI.
utilized way better. I mean, it was a way of like basically setting up what like Chewie and Han,
Yeah, it was like
but they were already explained, right? Like
I think what it kind of did was it gave them an excuse to ditch their ship. Like they had a huge freighter that they just left in orbit around Jakku, and it's like that must have cost a lot of money, and he's clearly not rich. How did they just abandon that ship and never mention it
See,
again?
well, it was how do you tie in the Millennium Falcon too, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, we lost it. He went through this guy stole from this guy.
I mean, they kind of they mentioned that I think later on in the film. I mean, I think the main part for that whole scene on Han's ship is that they're obviously trying to establish him also as a character to new people. We're like, hey, this is still like the smuggler
He's still
Han
smuggling.
who owes money to bad guys, and like they're gonna fuck him up if he doesn't pay them
It
back.
actually was like a really overblown Greedo, right?
Yes, exactly.
Like the same thing with Greedo, where it's like these are the sort of dealings he gets into, but now it's
Right.
an Irish gang and an Asian gang.
That's right. Very much Greedo.
But okay, here's another personal gripe: is that Asian gang had actors from The Raid Redemption.
I know you were disappointed about
and
that.
they had like one line, and then I don't even know if they died, but they just disappeared. Those guys are like extremely like top tier in the world martial artists who, and I've had so much hype. I thought they'd be Knights of Ren. I thought they'd be stormtroopers, like anything, and they just ran down a hallway.
They were bandits and died.
Man, and you know what, dude? That's misdirection. Like, we saw these trailers thinking we'd see a Knights of Ren massacre scene.
Yeah.
And
That's not the misdirection you want, though.
No, I'm not saying it was, I condone it. I'm just saying it's like, fuck. We all wanted that. We didn't get it. We talked about the raid guys doing martial art moves, and that was it. 2 lines. You're like, God damn it.
Misdirection is there's a shot in the trailer of Maz handing Leia the lightsaber. And so you keep
Yeah, okay, fair
waiting
enough.
for that
You're right.
scene or something. And then maybe they cut it. Maybe it was misdirection the whole time. But then when they have martial artists and there's no martial arts, then it's like, come on. That's just like a missed opportunity.
Maybe of the 13 scenes they supposedly cut, maybe
Yeah,
that was
that-
one of them, which would have been
So
stupid.
Personally
I'm
bummed
really,
me out.
I'm
Yeah,
really
that's-
curious what like on the Blu-ray release of this movie if they're going to like add some of these things
Right.
back in because
Yeah.
I would love to know that because I'm sure they had to make some cuts here and there. I mean, I agree that whole scene on Han's ship, like I understand what the purpose of it was to establish Han and Chewie and their background a little bit, but at the same time, it's like if you're doing this for the fans, we kind of already know who these people are. I don't know if you need to spend that much time doing this. And like that weird monster, you know, with like all that stuff, it was kind of like that was what that actually part scared the crap out of me because I was like, oh crap, this is reminding me more now of like the Lucas prequels. And I'm like, we have to be careful here. But
Yeah, that's where it really started to get kind of muddy.
it went over quickly, thank God.
Yeah.
But it was something that I agree with Josh. I think it was a missed opportunity with those actors. I think that could have been utilized better. Obviously, they're there to be like we're going to tell the First Order that like like Han has BB-8 and the girl and the fugitives and everything else, and like I understand that whole story point, but you know.
What if they exploit all the fandom and they release an extended edition on Blu-ray and simultaneously do a new theater showing? Of the
be amazing,
extended edition? Because
Double
they know
money.
people would go see it again.
And it has like Kung Fu versus tentacles.
Be ridiculous.
Shit.
Okay.
If that's
like,
the sort of shit that was in there, I'm glad it was cut.
Here's a nitpick, though, of that scene is everyone gets eaten by those monsters. Finn gets grabbed and just dragged around for minutes on end.
That was confusing. Yeah, it didn't make sense
Why
why the
would it
monster was
drag
doing
the
that.
hero?
He was digesting the other people.
Yeah, he
But
was
there were
he was
3.
full.
He was full.
There were 3 of those monsters. I don't know.
He's on a
that
diet,
sort of
dude.
stuff where the heroes get special treatment in movies
Yeah.
bugs me.
I'm not gonna advocate that scene.
By
it was
far
not
the
yeah.
worst.
It was it was a really frustrating
Scene.
scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, other than that, we can move on.
C-3PO nailed his role.
Yeah.
He wasn't overused when he just pops his head in and
That was
like
so fucking great.
and he's like, you probably don't recognize me because of the red arm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had that one snarky comment too, like I think it was like his last line where he was
It hits R2.
he was making a comment about a character. I can't remember because someone was like annoyed by something. He was like, "Yep, typical this." You know, like, do you guys remember what I'm talking about? No.
Kind of.
But okay, what is the deal with the red arm? Is there some sort of canon
All I've
justification?
heard is that the guy
J.J.
who plays-
Abrams loves
no,
Metal
the guy
Gear
who plays
Solid.
C-3PO, it's Anthony Daniels.
Anthony
Yes.
Daniels, yeah.
he kind of had the idea, just because he has so little role in the film, he wanted like something to be different about him.
Tight.
And it was his idea, and JJ was like, cool. And now he's right on him. And then it's probably in some comic book that'll come out.
Exactly. I mean, that character's always fallen apart, right? Like
Yeah.
in like so many movies, or all of them, right? So it's just like another gimmick. Like, oh, he must have had an incident where maybe Chewie ripped his arm off to battle some
It's
other
just
person.
such a
I
prominent
thought
like
that
color
was-
and object for
Red.
yeah. Like, I mean, that's fine. Not everything has to be explained.
Cool.
R2 on the other hand.
So speaking of, like, I mean, what do you guys think about BB-8? I mean,
Dude, BB-8 was
so good.
fucking
Awesome,
so
right?
good. Like
Right?
every moment with him, I was thinking about so much about, R2 had the beeps and the whistles and all these things
Yeah.
and the shaking. But this droid, just because we've always been a fan of this gyro system, the two ball kind of thing. But man, there's so much personality that can arise out of looking at two characters back and forth, feeling sad, like
The thumbs up.
The thumbs up
thumbs
was
up was great.
you're gonna see so many gifs like being used on Reddit for that. Like that
I
was so great.
I found him really, really charming, and I
Yeah.
know that he's mimicking some of the stuff that we saw from other droids in the past. But there were moments where like his emotion, I think, was too strong for something that's supposed
Oh,
to
yeah.
be a robot.
yeah.
Like when Poe is supposedly dead. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, like why is he?
Sure.
Who
I like
programmed
it.
him to feel sad? Whatever. Like I still found him
Sure.
charming, but
Yeah.
it was like, all right, I'll forget I saw that.
His sound design, though, and I'm pretty sure, I might be wrong, I think Ben Burt did the sound for Wall-E. Like,
Oh.
he did Wall-E sound effects, and they told
He's
so
very
much
Wall-E,
with
yeah.
those-
Yeah,
that sound. Like, you can tell lessons were learned from that movie that, like, worked out really well. And obviously R2, but
But I just love the attention to detail in BB-8.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there was that scene where they're at Maz's palace or whatever. I don't even know what that place was called. I forgot.
Oh, when he's going down the stairs.
Castle.
But yeah, he's going down the stairs.
so
and, like,
fucking
he's
cool.
just going like one step at a time. And then
So
head face
adorable.
down, and
It's
like,
fucking
and
adorable.
It's just like da-dun, da-dun, da-dun. And it's
Yeah.
just like, and then like when he's like in the Millennium Falcon rolling
Rolling
all over the
around,
fucking
and then
place.
the chords. Like
Yes. It's
finally,
just-
it wasn't like R2 with jetpacks, flying around. It was like just give me enough to make it.
I liked when
Awesome job.
when Finn was trying to get him through that portal. He's like, "No, where I got it." Whoa.
Yeah, it was really heavy, dude. Of the couple moments, I think I actually like teared up. The first time in the theater was when Rey is talking, or when Rey hears BB-8 and she runs over. By the way, the AT-AT hangout she had was so fucking cool. Anyways,
Yeah.
she runs over and she sees BB-8, and she's like, give him directions and tell him where the nearest base is, and then she walks away, and then she looks back. Like, I teared up there because I was like, fuck, that is so Star Wars, but also it wasn't like one of the homage cameo moments. It was like, here are two new characters. This is fucking Star Wars, and it was new and it was fresh, and it still brought back that feeling, and I was like, fuck, this is good.
Again, like BB-8 and Rey made that film for me.
Yeah.
I mean, their relationship, that whole establishment of like the lost puppy who just wants to follow his new owner home and everything else like that was awesome. And like, like she takes away, like she goes to like the smuggler dude and is like, hey, like here's all I have, and he's like, I'll give you like 60 portions worth for that droid.
Right.
He's like, nah, I'm cool.
Yeah,
Come with
wasn't that
me.
great? Yeah.
That was I was a little curious about why that happened, because someone whose life has been defined by survival
Yeah.
for like whatever it takes, going these really dangerous lengths. Here she gets this convenient way to like be good. Why is she so sympathetic towards a robot?
Yeah, I mean, I think
Sorry, a droid.
a droid. Well, no, I mean, it's,
Asshole.
Because he's cute, man.
I think
No, he
fuck.
is. He is.
I think
But-
she.
I mean, Peter,
Yeah.
would you give up BB-8?
Oh, dude, if I honestly think about me being in her shoes, like she didn't even want him. She was
whole
like,
day's work.
"Fuck off, get out of
for a
here."
quarter ration, right?
Yeah, she busted her hump for like one stinky green loaf, and then here she has the ability to have
But it's
a bunch.
You at least understood that
she
she
doesn't-
cared. She cared about the droid enough to save him from being turned into scrap.
But she also hated that person because she didn't want things scrapped to begin with. She hated that person like tore things apart that were still functional.
Yeah.
From
And
her
then-
very first words with BB-8, though, she treated him as a human.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's true. That's what I was gathering. as
And
well.
like she was
she could
giving him
also
directions. She was giving him directions not because she didn't want him or whatever, but because she would give a human directions, not keep it. Like you don't
She-
just keep people. And she just treated her BB-8 pretty much as an equal.
But I mean,
And
she could also understand him though, like which is a lot of people like
And
Finn could
Chewie.
not. Yeah, she could
Somehow.
It was weird.
and
that
she knew how to take apart a ship, how to fix a ship, how to fly a ship.
how to fly, which
was
is
badass.
really weird, I think.
So and a lot of the beefs that people have is like, how the fuck did we see her as a scavenger end with her wielding a blade and killing people? And I think what they hint at with the flashback is that she's 4 years old or whatever age it was when she got dropped off. The spoiler of that is what we're led to believe is that Luke had the Jedi Temple. He started off, trained Kylo. Kylo snapped. Supposedly, Kylo, in rumors and somewhat spoilers, is that Kylo wanted to know how to make and use a lightsaber, and Luke wasn't ready to teach him that yet. Kylo got frustrated. Supposedly, that's how he created the Knights of Ren. He found other Jedi in the squad. This is all speculation, obviously, but there's some truth in it. And anyways, they snapped. They killed all the Jedi. Luke felt responsible, fled, and supposedly Luke's significant other had Rey. She took off with Rey, dropped her off on the planet, and then took off.
Yeah.
But the idea is that people are saying, oh, maybe Rey's brainwashed, maybe she like had it all erased, but she knows more stuff than Luke ever did.
So remember this: J.J. Abrams did Alias, right? He produced Alias, and that whole series kind of premises off the fact of like a woman who doesn't exactly know her like past, like at least consciously, but subconsciously she kind of picks it up and starts to kind of figure things out for herself, and it's like, oh crap, like I'm a badass, right? So I like that whole aspect of it. If that's the way Abrams and Lawrence Kasdan are going, that's an interesting story arc. I actually kind of want to see that develop more, because clearly she was waiting for somebody, but she has no idea who that person is, it seems like, So like maybe that is Luke, maybe that's her mom, who knows?
Yeah.
But Abrams is out after this film.
Yes, he is.
right.
But he did.
I think he's going to oversee
He co-wrote
it.
the script with Kasdan, and I'm sure that he's working on the Looper director, who's new.
He's executive producer.
Yeah,
of the next one.
he's overseeing a lot of it. Yeah.
Cool.
Because I'm sure they have to take notes and make. I mean, it has
Nah,
to be
they're just gonna
cohesive.
wing it.
And just the continuity has to continue, man.
But what I was actually trying to get by, it's kind of a weird segue with the history or whatever of her, but what I was getting at was that she inherently like doesn't belong on that planet. She doesn't like anyone there. She's etching away the days she's been there. She wants to get off. So she in her heart doesn't like.
But she
feel,
also wants to go back. In the beginning, she
wants to go back because that's all she's known for so long, and she's waiting for
She doesn't
someone.
want to miss the
return of the person.
Yeah.
And so that was.
Does anyone believe that she's not Luke's daughter? Are
I-
we all
That's
basically?
the easiest answer.
It's the
solution
easiest.
for me.
Yeah, I mean, because look, Han and Leia had such strong feelings about their son, and they had no problems hiding it.
Yeah, that's the biggest.
I don't think that they could encounter Rey and there not be a glimmer of something that makes anyone in this room think, based on just seeing this film alone, that she's related. I think the potential that she could be their kid is there, but it would just seem like a
It wouldn't make sense.
an unfortunate, like a manipulative bait and switch, just for the sake of shock rather
Too
than any
M.
sort
Night
of logical.
Shyamalan, too much of a twist. And also, like, I read these horrible theories where people were saying, like, maybe Kylo Ren mind wiped
I know.
people, and it's like
you're talking
you
about
just-
the Vox
the
piece.
Vox thing. It's like
Yeah.
you just invented something
Jedi
to
power.
push your theory forward. Like,
Yeah.
Right. Excuse.
You
Here's what
didn't-
I think.
I'm sure he couldn't like mind wipe the existence of a daughter away. Like maybe you could forget what you ate for lunch yesterday, but like, that's a pretty big thing to forget.
Yeah.
Especially
Yeah.
for like force sensitive people. Like Leia would see her and feel some connection.
I think Leia and Han knew who she was though.
Oh, I think so too.
I think when Han was in the Falcon and it was like these looks where she says like, it's really charming. She's just like, I've never known there was so much green in the galaxy before. And he gives her a look like, I know you, I know. Like, I know what's up with you. I think he was hiding that. I think they're just trying to
He offered
basically
her-
save her. He doesn't know how to handle it, I think.
His
for the
whole
most part.
life, right?
Yeah,
Or not life, but whatever. It's been him and Chewie forever.
Yeah.
He offered her a job like right away.
Yeah.
He's offered Luke a job
Yeah.
in A
Yeah.
New Hope, right?
Right.
Only two people I've ever seen him offer a job.
And also,
Right.
like, you have to like look back. Like, it's funny because Han and Chewie and Luke, they're all legends apparently still in this universe. Like Rey. Even does Finn know who they are? I know Rey knows who they are in the beginning. She knows who Luke Skywalker
Yeah,
is. She
they-
knows
Remember in the ship with Poe, and he's like, the droid has the plans to where Luke
Luke
is.
Skywalker. Yeah, and
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, like he
and
knows,
then Finn
right?
too. I remember they both said like Han Solo, the famous smuggler, or she's like
War
no,
hero.
the famous war general. Like so,
Yeah.
people hear different stories and everything,
Yeah.
which is cool. Like hearing it trickle down, however many years, 30 years.
It'd be cool to see if, it comes to the conclusion that, yes, she is Luke's daughter. She finishes, potentially training with him and goes back. And then Leia is her mother figure, I mean, yes, her aunt, but also someone that she had worked with, established trust, established a connection to. And then now even more so, especially Leia after losing Han and losing her son to him turning into, Kylo, like, shit, Rey is the perfect substitute for both facets of those characters.
And it's funny too because like in the beginning of this movie or throughout the film, like you started to see this dynamic between Han Solo and Rey develop, where like this is clearly father-daughter. Like I mean, I never thought that he was her father, but I did feel like that dynamic building where like they would finish each other's sentences, they knew the same stuff.
Right.
Like he was always amazed and impressed by her, and I'm like, ooh, I would love to see this relationship just kind of develop more. But I love that they were doing that. So when you did see Han die, you saw that look on Rey's face. She was like horrified. You know?
I mean, but let's look too at Han and Luke, right? Like there was this one scene where she was like, "Did you know Luke?" And he's like, "Yeah, I knew him." Like, they're brothers.
They are brothers.
They're not just like brothers-in-law. Like
No.
they formed a kinship throughout those previous films, and so I think that probably played a big part.
Well, his feelings there are obviously super complicated with what his son did too.
Yeah.
So
which is great because like that's especially like in these sequels as we get towards the end of this thing, like you can kind of feel like, okay, I'm starting to see how things are going to unfold now. Like why Han and Leia split up, why Han may not talk to Luke anymore. There's a lot of there's a lot of drama and baggage there.
Dude,
And
so
it's-
much.
yeah.
I fucking loved how there was this series of like events that made like Han change and then confront that. That was like his biggest fear, right? Like Kylo goes AWOL crazy. He flees, goes back to what he felt was safe. Talks to Leia. Leia wants him back. He doesn't just do it. He doesn't go talk to Kylo for him. He does it also for Leia, right? Like he's trying to make things right, and that's what's like so frustrating and sad is that he was like, I have to fucking do this. I have to confront my biggest fear, and he's met with his doom. It was just such a sacrifice.
Well, yeah, there has to be that one individual who will take the risks that a group logically couldn't do. Leia is not a warrior. She's a general, right? She could have commanded a team to go try to do what they did. But at the same time, in every film in the past, it's always been that one person. And it's usually been Luke. So, I mean, Han was... that was his role. He basically was like, well, we need a hero. Like, I'm going to be the martyr, and that's going to be the hero. I don't think he went there with the intention to die. That doesn't seem to make sense to me. But
I don't think so.
But you could definitely tell there was a point where he was basically like,
I may die.
yeah,
I'm putting it on the line. I'm putting it on the line. Like
Yeah.
this is he had to do it.
I
loved it.
I wanted to like quickly not change subject here, but I wanted to see if anybody else had a sigh of relief when you found out that Snoke wasn't actually a gigantic 18-foot tall
So that was so crazy because Josh and I, Andy Serkis, who is Snoke,
Yes.
he did this interview and he talked about how he was really scared of doing this role because he was up on a like 20-foot podium talking down to Kylo, and not knowing he doesn't explain what the character is, but you're led to believe two things coming in this movie was like, is he on a fucking podium or is he a 30-foot giant?
Yeah, is he
and
a
so when
giant?
they show that, I remember the theater thing like, no, like they're making him a giant. Like, what is this movie? Like, I was so upset. I was like, oh man, this is gonna be so fucking weird. I'm thinking like, as I'm seeing this first time, I was thinking like, what is this third movie gonna be? Like, is it gonna be a couple Jedi and this dude?
It's like Shadow of the Colossus.
And then the hologram diminishes, and it put a fucking grin on my face. I was like, God damn it!
You were like, thank the fucking Lord.
Yeah.
I
was
think
like,
that
wow.
probably even hit home like harder for the people who'd been following the leaks because like
Yeah.
we were like, no, they did it.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And then like the hologram flickers, and you're like, okay. I mean, but here's the thing: did he need to be CG? Right? Like he was just a humanoid with. It could have been makeup.
Yeah,
It looked like
I agree with
Voldemort,
you.
man.
Yeah.
It was a little too reminiscent of Harry Potter for me. I was like,
Yeah. Well, that was the thing, right? Is like, would if they wanted to have this giant hologram, like, would they have just blown up? I don't know. Yeah, I guess you're right. I thought it looked good. I thought he was really menacing and bizarre.
I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
But I mean, they didn't need necessarily to make that a CG character,
Yeah.
and like, but on the other hand, maybe they didn't know what he looked like when they motion captured.
yeah.
yeah. But if you think about the Emperor, right? Like, imagine if we got a new version of the Emperor. Like, I would love to see Andy Serkis all drawn out and like just decrepit. Like, that would be great because we got that in Gollum a little bit, but it was a CG rendition. To actually see Serkis in that way,
Yeah.
where he's not behind the mask, That would have been cool.
It's going to be. I mean, I want to close this out, but I want to talk about like the sequels and what you guys kind of hope to see in the in episode 8 and 9, because it sounds like we'll meet Snoke in the flesh at some point here. Obviously, the way the movie ended, with Rey handing the lightsaber back to Luke. Where do you guys think this is going to go?
I don't know. Story-wise, all I want is...
Or what do you want? Yeah.
What do I really want is I want something fucking really new, right? Like we got so much of this homage and this tie-in from like what we loved and everything, but I'm good with that. I'm done. I want someone like really new. I want cool training. I want to see these characters are going to grow. Kylo and Rey are gonna have their duel that they're gonna have is gonna be freaking epic. Like. I don't know. There's so much. We need more in Finn. I mean, I'm curious to know what is he gonna do. What's his role? Sanitation in the next movie? Like,
yeah, he's not a pilot, right?
Right.
So like
Gunner.
He's not really got a lot that he can be except kind of like a hero or whatever, like just running and gunning or something. I'm curious though. Like, I really had a lot of high hopes for JJ making this really sick. I think it was a little too JJ Abrams though. Like, I feel like the original Star Trek reboot was better than this, and I'm not a Star Trek fan. I'm a Star Wars fan. I do think, though, and I'll put money on it, that Episode 8 is going to be the best Star Wars.
I'm wondering if it's going to go down a similar path.
Because, the guy that's directing that and writing it wrote and directed Looper.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen that, you should watch that. That movie is really sick. And, like, seeing that world, like, or that guy's vision tackling Star Wars, I think that movie... And also kind of Empire too, right? This movie has the permission to be dark because like they can brighten it all up for 9, right? So he can do, I think, a lot in the next movie. He can end it on a really dark note, and I think it probably will. Disney will probably like give him some limitations on what he's able to do, but
yeah,
I'm not sure exactly what will happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's some like heartbreaking, like real brutal stuff.
Yeah, I think you're on point. I think there's definitely room for that. But yeah, again, they got all this stuff out of the way, right? Like this is Star Wars. Now let's be Star Wars on our own.
Well, they're transitioning, right? They had to establish like, okay, here's what's happened to the old characters. We're going to transition from them into the new ones. We lost Han already. Like, will Chewie and Leia and even Luke persist beyond the halfway mark of the next movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I want to see. I wasn't 100% thrilled with Carrie Fisher's performance as Leia. I mean, obviously, like
they knew that.
And we kind of knew that going in, so I'm curious how long she'll be there. I mean, we have 2 years here, and Rian Johnson's doing the next one, like you said, the Looper director, who I think is going to be a great choice for this. Will this be the darker episode? Because that trailer, the first trailer we saw of this, or the second trailer maybe, I felt that this was going to be a much darker Star Wars than what we actually got.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, I really hope that they do take some chances, like you said, Rob. I think with this rendition of it, they had to establish something that was very broad appealing, that was going to captivate and grab a lot of people. I think they successfully did that, and now that they have the audience, they can kind of hopefully take it maybe a different direction, take some more risks, not rely so much on the fact that like you're trying so hard to establish these characters, and then let them kind of grow into their own. That's my hope. So,
yeah,
that's a podcast.
That's a podcast.
That's a video podcast. Now, we don't really do this much at GameSpot, but maybe we'll do more of these. Who knows?
Yeah, Rogue One.
Well, now we have this new room.
Yeah, we have this.
We're gonna first time we've used this.
We'll
room.
fix
It's
the
the first time.
we'll fix the audio problems and some other shit later.
And what a better movie
To begin
than this one. Cool. All right. Well, thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone. Obviously, I'm sure you'll have your own comments to say. You can leave them in the comments below. We'll see you in 2 years when episode.
Next year for Rogue One.
Yeah, we'll be there.
Rogue One. Okay.
That's gonna be really good too, I think.
Big fanboy.
I hope there's actual martial arts in it.
I hope it's all martial arts.
They got Ip Man.
Oh, they do?
It's Johnny. Something.
Johnny something.
Yen.
Johnny Five.
Johnny Bodega.
Yen something.
Johnny Karate.
There you go.
All right.
Later, guys.
See you guys.